Hi there everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Prestige Liquids. My name is Andrew, and as always it is fantastic to have you here with me again on another whiskey review video. Now before we get started, please make sure you go and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you can stay up to date with all future content. Now in today's video I have something very special for you, and I know I do seem to say that a lot, but in this instance it is very true. Now today I will be reviewing it's the first single malt release from Archie Rose Distillery. Now Archie Rose is a distillery based in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. If you've been following me for some time now, you probably would have noticed that I have already reviewed their rye malt and the Sandiego Heritage rye malt, both of which are absolutely fantastic whiskies. And I have just created a playlist as well for these Archie Rose whiskies, so I'll put a link down in the description and put one of those memo things that come across the screen so you guys can have access to that. So let's first of all, let me just show you the packaging. It's one thing that I love about Archie Rose is their packaging. One, they are quite affordable. They are one of the very few, I guess, Australian distilleries that release at 700ml, and I'll say they just have exquisite packaging. I mean it is kind of like useless, but it is really nice as well. I think there's a lot of distilleries that can, I guess, take a hint from, I guess, the level of presentation. I mean, you feel like you're getting, like, say, something really good, which is always a good thing. Now normally I don't like to read notes off the boxes, but in this instance I believe that the message that Archie Rose has on this is quite good, so I will share that with you, so bear with me. So they're saying, at Archie Rose, we believe malt provides a potent and vital contribution to the final flavor profile of our whiskey. Our single malt whiskey is distinctly crafted to highlight 6 malts, each with a unique profile and character. Single malt whiskies typically feature 1 or 2 malt mash bills. Our 6 malt mash bill produces an extremely low yielding spirit, a small sacrifice for a rich and expressive flavor, full of distinct regional character. Matured predominantly in 100, 200 and 300 litre Australian Apera casks, each coopered with a balance of char and toast. The natural sweetness of these incredible casks complements the savoury charisma of our spirit, revealing fresh herbs, shortbread biscuits, raisins, toffee and dark chocolate on the nose. So I just felt that was some pretty interesting information to share with you. So right now what I will do is pour a little bit of this. So as I mentioned when I read that information, they've said that this has been aged in predominantly Apera casks. For those of you who don't know, Apera is an Australian sherry. So obviously for legal reasons we can't call it sherry, we have to call it Apera. So yeah, that's what we have down here, Apera instead of sherry. Now this has also been bottled at 46% ABV. As far as I know, it is non-chill filtered and natural colored, which I believe goes across the board for all of the Archie Rose whiskies. And speaking of color, take a look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. You've got this nice golden amber color. This is actually reminding me, for those of you who are fans of Jurassic Park, you remember when they find the mosquitoes preserved in that resin? That's what this looks like to me, 100%. This is a Jurassic Park whiskey right here. So, all right. Before we get into the nosing, I mentioned as well that there were 6 malts that were used in the mash bill for this. So those malts they range, or they come from, say, different areas, some from Australia and other countries. So first of all, we've got a pale malt, a caramel malt, an amber malt, and a chocolate malt. Those all come from Eastern Australia. There's also an aromatic roasted malt, which comes from Germany. And then there is also a peated pale malt, which comes from, I think I'm going to mispronounce this, but from Caithness in Scotland. So we've got a Scottish peated malt. One really fantastic thing about Archie Rose is that they do not hide really any information about the production of their products. So what I'm going to do, on their website they have what they call like a spirit data sheet. I'll put a link into the description for that as well, so that way you guys can see the full specs for this whiskey, and they'll be able to explain things I guess a lot better than what I can. So alright, enough of that. You're here for the review. Let's see what we get. So man, the nose is absolutely incredible. It's a instant like sherry bomb, or I guess apera bomb in this instance. So imagine all your, I guess, like apples, pears, vanillas, grape, fig, and then that follows through like with dark chocolate, touch of raisin. There's a nice like a very light like dusting of barrel char and smoke that comes through. Now they say that they use a peated malt in this, but if it is very low. It's not something that you can really pick up so much. I mean, there is a slightly smoky, earthy note that comes through, but in my opinion, that is probably more of more barrel influence than what you would get from a typical like peat influence. And you just have this nice, rich, sweet, savory note on the nose. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay, let's see what we get for the palate. So moving on. One thing that I love from Archie Rose, it is the mouthfeel from their whiskies. They have seemed to have mastered this nice, like thick, oily, syrupy texture that is a very prominent feature across the Archie Rose whiskey range. So you get this nice, even mouth coating. As I mentioned, the ABV on this is 46%, so you get these very like light, like tingles of the alcohol dancing around on your tongue. It's a really nice experience. You get, I mean, there's this instant fruitiness. So again, as I mentioned, all those like figs, raisins, honey notes, some slight bit of like rye menthol, a little bit of butterscotch, and then I guess towards the back end of the palate, you get this nice big hit of like chocolate and coffee. Now, one thing that I've become quite aware of recently, especially once it was pointed out to me from sampling another brand of whiskey, and that is the coffee. There have been a lot of Australian whiskies that I have tried recently that seem to have a very dominant like coffee note, and that's something that I don't really get from other types of whiskies. So I guess for me, that's something that's like quite exciting and very interesting, and what kind of makes Australian whiskies a little bit more unique in comparison to other, I guess, like international brands. So if you guys are able to, for those of you who are overseas, and eventually if you are able to get your hands on say this, or say other types of Australian whiskies, keep an eye out for that chocolate note, and also the coffee as well. So you get these nice chocolate coffee notes coming through on the Australian whiskies. Let's see what else we can get. Okay, so again, those that peat malt in it again is very light, but it is a lot more prominent on the palate than what it is on the nose. You've got this nice like earthy smoke that's coming along. In terms of the profile of the peat, For me, don't go expecting like an Isla style of peat. It's more of like a Highland Park, like earthy, foresty type of peat smoke that's coming through. Moving on to the finish, it's just so nice and velvety smooth. You've got like a touch of smoke that just wants to keep coming up. Again, you get more of that those peated notes coming up on the finish, following through with like vanilla, honey, caramel, and just these like very light like oaky like barrel influence coming up on the finish. This, I would say, is just such a well balanced whiskey. It's got so much going on in it. I think it's a perfect whiskey for, I guess, veteran drinkers who want a nice sophisticated whiskey, but at the same time it's also perfect for, I guess, beginner or intermediate drinkers, because you'll be able to just pick up all these different profile notes, and it will really help you for developing your palate. So this is just an absolutely fantastic whiskey. So far, all the products that I have tried from Archie Rose have been absolutely sensational. Really, they can do no wrong. Yeah, sorry, it's just absolutely beautiful. I don't really think I have much else to say. I mean, I think from what I've said, that seems to cover it really well. And yeah, that's it. I'll leave it at that. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, my name is Andrew. When you get a chance, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, and I'll see you all again on the next video. KIPPIS.